I had the pleasure of sitting down and speaking with John Phifer Marrs, celebrated interior designer and author of the best-selling book Interiors for Collectors. Marrs infuses his designs with a blend of Southern charm and timeless elegance, reflecting his own Southern roots. He has worked on all sorts of projects, including the official residence of a United States ambassador. His work has been featured in publications like Architectural Digest, Better Homes and Gardens, and Southern Accents. He was such a delight to speak with, had such a wonderful sense of humor, and I hope that you enjoy our conversation. Welcome to Grandma's Silver, where tradition meets today. I'm Allie, your host and the founder of the Grand Millennial Lifestyle. Here, we blend aesthetics with nostalgia, engaging in conversations with lifestyle brands, designers, and more to rediscover the timeless charm of the past. Join me as we journey from home to heart, illuminating the past and polishing the present with the gleam of Grandma's silver. All right, John, thank you for being here. I am so excited to be chatting with you. And as I mentioned in your introduction, we have you here. You're a professional interior designer, of course, but we are also going to chat because you are an author. So we have your book here, which our listeners cannot see, but I will link it in the show notes because it is stunning. It's Interiors for Collectors, and we will talk all about that soon. But thanks for being here. We're so excited.
Thank you, Allie. My pleasure. I'm delighted to share with you the world of collecting.
Wonderful. Well, I guess before I get too far in and start chatting all about the book, why don't you give people a little bit of information on your background, how you got started in interior design, what sparked your interest in the field, and how you've gotten to where you are today?
Okay. Well, it's a long story, but I'll make it brief. I've been doing this for, 40 years. So it's a long time. It seems like yesterday that I started. I do primarily high-end residential. When I first graduated from school, I thought I needed to learn to do hotels, and to be successful, I'd have to do hospitality and so forth. And then it took me quite a few years to realize I loved residential. I loved the connection with people on one-on-one. Part of the fascination with design was how people live and how they enjoy their homes, which probably is still my most important mission when I'm working with a client. How can I make your life better, your life more enjoyable? How can I make the things that you have look even more wonderful? So it's just been a labor of love. I do enjoy residential. That's primarily what my firm does. We have done projects really all over the country, all over. We actually did several things in Europe. It's been a fun time, and you just never know in interior design what tomorrow's going to bring. I want to look forward to driving over to your house and having our consultation. I want it to be fun. I try and have a sense of humor about things. I do like to laugh. I've always loved antiques. I've loved more traditional design. I've seen the trends come and the trends go. When I first started, people didn't have anything but mini blinds and plants. There were no curtains in the window. Everything was clean. And then, you go through the time period where you can't get enough trim on everything. It's all more is more. And then that sort of wanes a bit. And we've had a big resurgence of mid-century and the world of gray, which I'm so tired of. But anyway, it starts to come back. I mean, it's so funny, even with curtains. Rarely are you doing balances and such. In the last few years, it's been taped down the lead edge, and that was about it, exposed rods. So now you're seeing things come back that, I did 10 or 15 years ago. And to me, I want a classic look. I want a room that doesn't scream, you decorated it in the spring of 2024.
Yeah, you don't need a room with a timestamp.
You don't need the lampshades will probably give you away. That's the one thing that typically you can tell a room's time period by the lampshades. But a classic room is a classic room. And when I started out, I had to buy things that I could live with for a long time and wanted to. And that was probably the goal. But I don't like changing things out a lot. I'll do slip covers because I like a summer winter look, and that'll give me a change. But I typically put the furniture in place, and in most rooms, there's only a couple of ways it really looks the best.
Mm-hmm.
And I put it there, and then I pretty much keep it like that way because I think I get it right the first time. And my gift, I have a really good sense of scale and balance, and I can easily go in and see what's wrong with a room.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a very good editor. A lot of people, I don't think, can edit and organize. And there's nothing that I love more than a job where a person has tons of stuff and I get to go and just inventory it, go through it, and figure
Purge.
out, purge. Yes, this goes to auction house, this goes to the garage sale, whatever. And then figure out how it all looks new and different in the new house, the new space. That is so much fun to me. I think I enjoy that more than an empty room where everything has to be ordered and purchased new. And that's something that I find a little boring. Most of the rooms look, as I say, soulless. I think they need some personality. And that's one thing about antiques to me that give a room a soul, or something just crazy that a person has. It'll probably be, they're always hesitant to tell me about the thing their great aunt left them that's upstairs in the attic. And, well, what is it? I say, and they're like, oh, well, it's this strange painting. I don't know. You want to see it, and sure I do. So up I go, and it's usually something I'm crazy about, and becomes a focal point of the room. And then it always gives the client a story to tell about the piece that they inherited, that they loved, and the person that went along with it.
You touched on this multiple times in your book, but one of the first things that you said in that was your grandmother's secretary desk.
Oh, yes.
And
yes.
Right away, I was like, oh, I'm going to love this. You know why? Because that right there was like, he cares about authenticity, and he wants to incorporate pieces that tell stories and that might not be the trendiest or sometimes even the prettiest, but to just infuse like your environment with things that are you.
Yes.
Happy and make sense and have a story. That's the best space to walk into, where you can look around and know like whose house it is.
Totally. It has a personality.
Yes.
There's something in it that's interesting, and it's not all from Pottery Barn or Ballard, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. But I want something from old Aunt Gertrude that's slightly weird, or, a family thing. And you touched on my secretary. Yes, I remember my grandmother sitting at that secretary when I was a kid. And you've seen the picture in my book, and it looks like bird's eye maple with an inlay of ebony and such. When my dad gave it to me, it was an old brown mahogany piece. Talk about brown furniture. It was the poster child for brown furniture. And I thought, love this piece, has so many memories. It's not going to fit in my house because it just was too plain, I guess. So it's okay to redo things. And I found this wonderful artist that did beautiful faux bois, imitation wood in a painted finish. And she took the thing and had it for a year. And when she brought it back, it was so beautiful. And, it's in my bedroom. And every morning when I wake up, that's the first thing that I see is that secretary. And does it make me happy? Yes. Does it fill me with memories of my childhood and a wonderful grandmother that instilled the love of beauty? Yes, yes, yes. She wouldn't have floral carpeting in her house, even though she wanted it, because she didn't want to walk on flowers. She thought that was not good.
Oh my goodness. Could we all be so gentle? I wish.
Right.
But it's beautiful. It was such a beautiful, and when I say it's in the first few pages of your book, I don't think I'm exaggerating. I think it was very early on that you mentioned that. And of course, it was such a lovely thing to read, because it was right away, it just speaks to your authenticity and the fact. And then you later talk, I don't think much later, but you later talked about then your lake house. And Again, not the trendiest, maybe not even the prettiest by some people's perceptions, but again,
totally.
It just makes you happy. And you know what? At the end of the day, who has to live there? You. So
Exactly.
it's just such a easy approach, but one that I think we tend to overlook, because
Yes.
when it comes to outward expression, we are also afraid of being ourselves, even in our homes. So
Sure.
yeah, I appreciate it.
And being judged
Yes.
by other
And
people based on what you have. And so it takes some confidence to be able to say, I like this, and it may not be in style right now, but it doesn't matter because it gives me such joy. I remember my screened-in porch at the lake. It was a bunch of old things I just found at consignment stores and junk shops and old wicker. And, my mother and I would paint it. We'd have the best time. And when it was published in a magazine, and nowadays it's open mic. Everyone has a comment about everything.
That's such
And they love to tell you. And someone said, well, it looks to me like it needs to be redone.
Oh my gosh.
And I kind of loved that, because I thought, yeah, that was the look I was going for. Ruined finery. That's what I like. It should be fun. Building a home should be a joyful experience to me. How many houses are you going to build in your lifetime? Some people one, some people might build 4 or 5, but it should be fun, and it's a journey. And that's what I think is the exciting thing about it. That's what gets me up in the morning, is just that sort of the thrill of the chase, and coming up with something that's making someone's life more pleasurable. I started working with a young client years ago, and instead of doing they wanted to do the living room first, as most people do. We got to get our living room because that's where the company's going to come, yada, yada, yada. And I said, you're both professional people. I think you're stressed out. I think you ought to do the master bedroom first, because that's the last thing you see at night and the first thing you see in the morning. And that's going to have a real influence on your daily activities. And they took my advice, and we did the master bedroom first, the primary bedroom.
Even though we're living in our homes, we don't always know that that's not something that we always think about.
Right.
Someone in your position who is a professional can speak to that. And then it's like, you don't know what you don't know, kind of thing. So to have someone like you come in and say, hey, just like to flag that you look tired. And
you're stressed.
I think that we need to tackle something else first is important.
Well, and the other thing is, a lot of times people buy a new house and they think they're going to live in this room, and they think they're going to live in that room, and this is going to be the fun room, and yada, yada, yada. And they tell me all this. And sometimes I drag my feet, because I'm like, you need to kind of move in, live with it a little bit. And, they'll always come back and say, well, that little room off the dining room, we have turned that into our morning room, and we sit in there and have our coffee, and we just love that room. We never thought we'd use it. That's our favorite room in the whole house. Or the east sun is so pretty in that room, or the sunset is so gorgeous. That's where we really live, not the room that we thought we would. And sometimes you don't know till you get in that house or that space and you acclimate to it. I say, let's listen to the house talk a little bit. Let the house kind of tell us where it wants to go, which leads us to another whole different subject. It's like why people buy a certain style house and then try and remake it into another style is always a great mystery to me. If you want an English house, go get an English house. Don't buy a French one and then try and turn it into English. It just seems like it's difficult and kind of a waste of time. But, there's always other circumstances. They got a good deal on it, or it's something that they want to do.
Well, it goes back to that authenticity too, right? Like then you're not being authentic to the home. It always comes back to that.
It hurts the house. I think the house is unhappy.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. In your book, you mention I don't know if it was a study or an office above the garage, but it was kind of Churchill
Oh,
was
yes,
and
totally.
I don't know if you want to speak to that because you can obviously speak to it better than I just read the book, you experienced it. But again, with my background, that hit me and struck me because I kind of laughed to myself because as an event planner, something people always used to do was just shove Pinterest boards in my face and tell me to recreate it. And I think I would love to hear, because I think you did, again, if people can get their hands on this book, which I highly encourage, and go through this, particularly, I mean, there were a lot of different things, right? There was a home that was inspired by Versailles. I mean, you had so many people who were inspired by so many things. And just, if we could just take a second, because this is
Yes.
so critically important to differentiate between inspiration and mimicking.
That's a very good
Because
point.
this client, right, came to you, they wanted essentially the essence of like Churchill's study. Of
Right.
course, functionality, like what Winston Churchill's doing and what your client is doing are two different things. What they need that space for are very different. And you cannot just recreate somebody else's work either. So do you want to talk a little bit about that experience so people who haven't read the book yet maybe can understand what I'm talking about?
Well, I'm very excited when a client comes to me and says, I've always loved this space or that, and I'm inspired by it, and I would like to use that as inspiration. And that's fine. In this particular instance, the client loved Churchill's office in his wonderful home in England called Chartwell. And I knew instantly that the garage apartment over the garage was not going to really meet the requirements of Chartwell. But I understood what he wanted and the feel. I think it's more the feel. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, what the heck? I researched a lot of the things about Chartwell and Churchill's office, the light colored floors, the honey colored wood floors. It had a wonderful plaster fireplace. It had some beautiful beams, lots of books, which, we all love books. And this was to be his kind of law office away from home, his home office, and he was an attorney. I bought into it. I loved it. We went to, Waco, Texas. There's a place that sells antique beams, and we bought old beams, and we put them in the ceiling. And we came up with the colors of the honey color floors. And then I really sort of copied the fireplace design from his office. And that was mainly it, but it had the feeling of what he wanted from that he took away when he visited Churchill's office at Chartwell. And that was fine. We came up the stairs from the first floor, and he had a collection of black and white photographs of Churchill during his illustrious career. And so we hung those in a grouping all the way up the staircase. So you sort of got the feeling of what was happening, and some Churchill memorabilia, and then a desk where he could work to meet his requirements for everyday living, and then lots and lots of bookcases for the books. And it really did it certainly wasn't a duplicate of Churchill's office by any means, but it had the feel of that.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Well, thank you. And he loved it. And he wanted to have a bar where he could have a little brandy, in the evening. And so we had to design a piece of furniture that looked like an old cabinet. But
I loved it when I saw it.
Wasn't that fun?
It is so clever. I was looking around my house last night thinking, what could I?
So instead of an ugly old bar or refrigerator, here's this great piece of furniture that has a refrigerator in it, but you don't really notice it. And it was a lot of fun. And we used new marble, but we honed it to give it the look of age. And same thing with the beams. We left them in their natural color. And it was the color, the feel of the room. And the greatest compliment to me was, he was like, well, at the end of the day, I go up there and I sit and I read, and my cares kind of go away. And so I thought, okay, you can't get any better than that.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. So I love it. And many times in my career, if you'll notice, like one of the projects was a private library in a home. And so people come to me with these dreams. And some of my clients they're huge, big thinking people, successful, and they'll say, I would love to have a private library, and I'm thinking about that. Or I'm at a client's ranch, and he said, you see over this hill in that valley, I'm going to flood that and make a lake. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, right, whatever. And then I come back and there's a lake. And so I kind of love that stuff.
Oh my
I
God.
call it the big dreamers and the big schemers, and they're wonderful. A lot of people talk about it, never do it. A lot
Right.
of people do it, and so they excite me. I love hanging around those people, and they buy into the project and they really get excited about it, and it makes them happy. One time we did a recreation of a Greek revival house on the Natchez Trace, and the client was super duper and so much fun and loved old houses and incorporated so many details of old houses into this new house. So it
Wow.
was basically a new house that looked like it was built in 1860. So the point of this story is when the house was finished, I don't know, 4 or 5 years later, and day-to-day living started up, he'd lost interest because the joy was in the building of the house
Mhm.
and the process and all of that. So I think once the house was finished, it was very anticlimactic. And sometimes you see that. Sometimes the children are all grown, and they've got 4 kids at home. The house is being built. It's 3 or 4 years. And by the time it's finished, the kids are all gone. It's just 2 people in the house. I see that
Yeah,
all the
it's
time.
a whole different vision at that point. Yeah.
It is, and it changes, and our lifestyles change, and we have to adapt. And that's also a part of interior design. If you want to really analyze it, it's a very big part. How we're going to age in place, what makes us happy, the things we want to live with and enjoy. That's a big part of our happiness, and you want to be aware of that. So that was a long-winded answer. I don't even remember the question now.
It's all right. You addressed it. Inspiration.
Did I hit it?
Versus
Did
copy.
you get it?
You got it.
Okay, good.
We were talking about the library, which I think is a good segue into talking about collections, right? Because when I
it
saw that, I was thinking, I mean, it is so incredible. So incredible.
is.
But that begs the question, what goes inside, right? So
Right.
why don't you tell us, I guess, a little bit, because I don't know that we touched on this, but what led you to decide to write a book on collections and designing interiors around or with collections?
I have to say, we're in the age of so many designers have coffee table books right now. And I think some other design friends were teasing me like, oh, where are you going to write your book? And I'm thinking, I'm probably not going to. I think about all of them have been written that need to be, how many times do you have to tell the story? But no, but it did make me think, well, what if I ever did want to do that? If I decided I wanted to write a book, I felt that it was very important the book have a point of view. It's not just, oh, here's John Phifer Marrs from Dallas, and here's all of his jobs and yada yada yada. Well, it is that, but then I wanted something else with a point of view. So what it did make me do is lay out all the projects that I had photographs of over the last, gazillion years, lay them out, look at them. Again, a rush of memories of, oh, wow, I forgot about that. Oh, I love that. The Churchill thing, the house, and, all that. So it made me think about it. And then the more I looked at it, I was like, wow, so many of these clients are collectors. Some are big collectors, some just have small collections. Many times people don't even know they have a collection. I'll walk in their house and, here's a piece of rose medallion on an end table. Here's a piece over here on the dining table. Here's a giant bowl that's fabulous. So I'm like, hey, are you a collector of rose medallion? If they know what it is, then they're like, yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't think I am, but I have a few pieces. And so I'm always, well, if we took all those pieces and we put them in one cabinet or built in, you sort of have an instant collection, and it has much more impact than a piece here and a piece there all over the house. So they seem to be, it's kind of like that's in my bag of tricks. That's my number one thing.
It's
you
brilliant.
do that,
It's brilliant.
they're instantly amazed. And then, they have to call people and say, you're not going to believe this collection that I have. And so that's where I came up with one's nice, two's better, but three's a collection.
I love that. I wrote that down actually, because I was laughing. I think that's going to be what I tell my husband when I go out antiquing. That's my new go-to.
That's it. You've only got two, you've got to have three,
It's all wrong if there's not three. We need three.
That's right. It's not a collection, it's just a pair.
It's just two. It's just
if you have two, it's a pair. It's not a collection.
It's boring. We need more.
We need more. And I remember when I started collecting certain things, I would just, I'd get onto something and I just wanted everyone that I found. So I'd buy. And some were good, some were bad, some were chipped, and some were okay, and some were fabulous. And then you have to learn the art of editing, which is very difficult for a lot of collectors. And I think a lot of antique dealers, yes, and they suffer from the purchasing and buying and all of the fun thing of shopping, which is so good. And then they buy all this stuff and then it just sets around every place and it's sort of a big mess. And I'm like, instead of 20, what if we narrowed it down to 10 really good pieces, and then we displayed them together. And almost every job I had either had to put together a collection. In the case of the library, the client was a big collector. As we were building adding this wing on, crates were arriving all the time and he was purchasing and buying things. And so I'd have to prepare places for it or figure out a cabinet for this collection or that collection. That was all sort of part of the project. Or other clients, it would be they had tons of silver. There's a lovely client that's in the book, and she loves Victorian silver. She uses it to beautiful épergnes and beautiful teapots and coffee pots and things, and she uses it, but she also displays it, and it's a focal point in her home. I think that was the other thing. Many times people don't have good focal points, maybe they don't have great art, and so, but they have a wonderful collection of, even books can be a great collection, And I think the first story I told about getting started collecting is one of my best friends in college started collecting miniature books, and they were little tiny books, and they had to be, there are rules about miniature books, it has to be a certain size and this and that. And so he was a good collector, and he put together a lot of these different books. And, I thought he had the works of Shakespeare. And I was like, oh my gosh, the works of Shakespeare. That's really incredible in a miniature book. Okay. And then he says, well, those are kind of a dime a dozen. Those aren't really the peak collector items in the miniature book world. So then you get into the hierarchy of what's really collectible and what's common. Right. In that collection. He was a visual merchandise person, and he loved display and was excellent at it. And he had bought this weird Chinese pagoda model thing. I don't know what it was.
It was it looked gold. Cool. It looked pretty cool.
It was cool. And so he would arrange all those little miniature books inside that cabinet. I just thought it was the most fabulous thing I'd ever seen in my life. I could just sit there for hours and look in that little case and all these books. And some would be stacked on their sides, some would be, upside down, some would be here or there, and little furniture pieces. And it was just beyond anything I'd ever seen. And I just loved that. And it sort of taught me, you put it all together in one case or cabinet, and the impact is very important, and it makes a big impression. And you can do that with so easily. You can go to the consignment store and get an old break front, that so no one wants. And then you got to take the time and refinish it or paint it, do the background, the color. Then we get into lighting. And it was funny when I was doing the book. Well, first of all, I thought, okay, everyone can write a book, I guess, but if no one wants to publish it, it's probably sort of a waste of time. Let's just see how this plays out. So after I'd sort of gathered together all these photographs, I thought, for me to make this work, I've got to do a little book prototype. So I designed the front cover. I worked with a girl in my office. That was great. And so I said, I have to have a visual. So I had the front cover, the title, and then I kind of wrote some imaginary little chapters and things. And suddenly there was something there I could visualize and see. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, I like this. So it gave me a premise, gave me an idea. I did talk to a publishing, Gibbs Smith, and they were very nice and bought into my craziness and my idea and published the book. And so made me very happy. And then it was their suggestion, which I thought was, why didn't I think of that? Surely, after all these years of you working with clients that are collectors and dealing with their collections, you could have some helpful hints for the general public about how to arrange your collection, how to light the collection, how to figure out all the intricate things in displaying your collection. And I was like, brilliant. Yes. So at the very end, there's some how-to helpful hints of buying the china cabinet, changing the shelves out to glass, doing interior lighting, finding a color of paint or fabric to line the back of it with, to pop out the collection, like silver, how pretty it looks against blue. And there's different colors that work with different things. But Klein collected Majolica. And so, certain colors would look really spectacular behind that. So the helpful hint things, that was their idea. And I thought that was a lot of fun. And then I had to come up with sort of the chapters. And I thought, I don't know. So I realized sometimes I built a whole house around the collection. They were collectors and everything in it was sort of designed for the collections. Sometimes we did a single room that was for a collection a client had. And then sometimes it was just a piece of furniture. I think we're all collectors. And I truly believe that we are all fascinated by different things. And that's what makes the world exciting. Some people love texture, like they love fabrics and beautiful they like the tactile sense of touching it. Yeah. Some people like glass because the way the light hits it. Some people like silver. Some people like round things. Some people like asymmetrical. It's fun. And, I don't judge what people collect. I just find it fascinating. A lot of clients collect things I don't particularly want, but I love the challenge. I had to do an enormous wall of African clubs that were very valuable and I didn't know anything about, but it was so much fun because, I'm thinking, how do I lay these out and make them look really attractive? What color fabric do I put behind them to make them look good? That's all what I'm thinking about. I think there was a thing in the book many times, if it's a huge collection of things that hang on the wall, I will do a template on the floor and then lay the pieces out and then photograph it. Because a lot of these things, then I have to have a metal man make special brackets for holding each one of these items on the wall. And there's a process of several weeks before that's all finished. So I have my template and I know how it's going to look when it's all said and done and installed. And that's kind of another little helpful hint that's in the book. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, I have a couple of things to share here. So the first was that when I tell you, okay, listen, my background is in archaeology.
I love that.
Anthropology. I have been to many a museum. I have seen all of the all the exhibits. I'm well versed in all of that. But when I tell you that when I flipped to I don't know if we call it a chapter, the section outlining your client who collected, is it minerals and
yes.
Minerals and rocks?
Yes.
I have never seen such a beautiful, elegant display.
Oh, thank you.
Of things that have come from the ground. Stunning.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, it was so gorgeous. And again, folks who have no idea what I'm talking about, please go check out the book because you will be flabbergasted. I mean, it was gorgeous. That note, you did not give yourself enough credit. You gave so much, I actually was thinking to myself, coffee table book almost seems to be doing this a disservice. It is technically a coffee table book, right? It's not the kind of book that you just leaf through and it has pretty pictures, although sure, it absolutely does. But there is so much useful information throughout the entire thing, not just the end, although that gets a little more technical at the end there, and that was very helpful. But each section, you're not just talking about, here's what my client wanted. You provided ideas, you provided insight, it just triggered ideas even for me thinking about things, of course, because, I have many a collection. So it's just, how do you put those out on display? How do you make sure that, you spend all this time looking for things, how do you
True.
take those things and not just hoard them, but make sure that you can see them and that you can appreciate them and share it with people who come into your home. And I think that you just
True.
did such a beautiful job of
Oh, thank you.
encapsulating all of that in this book. You know, you talked, I think, and I think I even see some behind you, your Mudmen collection.
Yes, my
What
mud.
it gets getting pickier with things so that, you know, like how do you differentiate between when something is starts to get like you're hoarding a little or you're just grabbing it for the sake of grabbing it, right? Like sometimes, and I do this, I'll go to different Goodwills or my
Right.
Habitat Restore and I'll see something. And because in my head, I'm like, oh, I collect that. I just grab it. I don't even really assess it sometimes. And then I get it
Right.
home and I'm like, oh, it's a little lackluster. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know that I would put this out, but I just kind of impulse grabbed it because I told myself that's what
Sure.
we collect this.
Yeah. And
So,
if you're okay with it, then you can edit later on. I don't think
right,
there's a thing wrong with that. You
right.
know, you can do that. When I was a child, there was a lady that had been in the armed forces, and my parents befriended her, and she had been stationed in Japan, and she gave them a little mudman. We called it Confucius because we didn't know what it was. Me being the loving old things, I was the keeper of all things that no one else wanted, and especially old things. And so I ended up with it. Years later, I'm at a client's house and she's talking about her mudmen, and I didn't really know what she was talking about. And then she kind of gestured over to ones, and I looked on this table, and there was this big collection of these little guys that I had. And so I ran home to see if I still had Confucius, and I did. And I thought, oh, these are interesting, you know, and they were made for the tourist market and painted, and the faces and the hands were never painted. So they're left in the natural color of the clay, which is so interesting. The three behind me, one is very, very dark, one is lily white, and one sort of medium skin tone. So it has to do with the part of the clay from the part of China. There are a lot of them available. They were made for the tourist market. And I decided when I was going to collect them, I wasn't going to buy any that had a broken toe or finger or anything. They had to be as close to perfect as possible because there were so many I could choose. And so that helped me to not just buy every time I saw one. I'd look, study it. Nah, toe missing, not going to do it.
Right.
And then I became enamored with the ones with bald heads and the little top knots. I'm like, oh my God, they have personality. Those are so cute. I can't. And so, you know, I have to look at their faces and see what kind of an expression they have. And some farmer made this with a mold, someone's hands touching this and making this. And I have it. And this is like 1860, 1880. Right. And they're stamped China, which sort of tells you you had to stamp things so you could tell the age of when it was imported into this country. So it just became fascinating to me. And so the last time that I moved, I had to, I probably had 60. And so I had to scale down to 20.
Oh my gosh.
That was hard, but I did it. And then I have other collector friends that wanted them. And so I'm like, okay, spread the love around. That's the other thing with collections, you know, what you maybe are tired of, someone else is really excited about and want. It also goes back to collect what you love. Some people get forced into a collection because someone left them something and there's a lot of it, and they're like, okay, well, I'm going to keep collecting milk glass because my mother had it, you know. They don't really like it. I call that the forced collection, and that's okay if you want to, but then go get something you really like and you enjoy and it makes you happy and you love looking at it. And let's face it, it's the search that's so much fun. Before the internet, you know, when we could go to the junk stores, or, you know, we're in Ireland and shopping, or, you know, this and that was fun. Now you can sit in your PJs, you know, and be on liveauction.com, buy stuff all the time. But it's not as much fun as finding the shopkeeper and the shopkeeper having a story and telling you that, you know, where they got the piece and all that. So again, you know, antique dealers love to talk and share stories. I miss that. It's a wealth of information, and that's part of the whole process. People telling me, oh, my wife and I got this on our trip to Asia. We did this and that. And, oh, we had the most wonderful day, and it was so beautiful. Isn't that fun? That's what I like.
One of the greatest thrills I had with archaeology was just literally lifting something, an artifact, right? The technical term, from the earth,
Right.
and just going down this daydream rabbit hole
Yeah.
of, oh my gosh, the history that this has. The families, this china, this glazed china that I've just
Uh-huh.
pulled out of the dirt. Did someone eat from this? Who was preparing the meals? I mean, just to have that, and not all of these objects have those stories. A lot of that
Right.
information is unknown. But oh my goodness, is it not fun to dream? And just to have those things when you do have a story and then get to share it with people. And it's wonderful. Yeah. And to appreciate
Who touched it? Yeah, who touched it? Who made it? Who did?
yes.
I collect silhouettes, and my mother took me to the hotel in our hometown, and there was a lady that would come into town and cut silhouettes. And I collect them now, and these obscure people that I don't even know, and someone will write on the back, pencil, Aunt Gertrude, and in 1860 died so and so. I love all that.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to me. I mean, who touched it? What memories were there? I think that's the thing with antiques too. And to talk about, people want to be green and they want to be respectful of our planet. Well, you can't get any better than buying an antique because you're saving it, you're keeping a tree from being cut down again. And plus,
New
you're
life.
giving a room a soul.
Yeah. New life.
Totally. Did I tell you the funny story about the back to the client that had the mineral collection? And collecting minerals in Texas with a lot of oil people, the men really like rocks and stones and minerals and all that kind of stuff. So there's sort of that's a part of it, and that's something they like to collect. So we were building this house, and this room on the plan said library. So we kept talking about the library and the library this and library that. Beautiful walnut paneling and just some really special things. And so one day I said, well, I guess you have a lot of books. I haven't seen any of them yet. And he said, books? What are you talking about? And I said, books for the library? He said, no, I don't have any books. I don't want any books in there. And I said, you don't? So what are we doing? And he said, those are for my minerals.
My
like,
minerals.
okay. So all the bookcases were not for books.
You were probably thinking, I would have been like, oh, we need to reassess the weight capacity of these shelves.
Well, I did. Yes. I mean, I totally had to.
Oh
and
my
then
gosh.
guess what? Each one of those mineral things, they don't stand up by themselves. So
No,
you have to make a little custom base for each one of them with prongs that hold them. And when we were installing them, I had like 4 or 5 guys lifting these things up and putting them in there. So my client, he's wonderful. I just loved him. And he was so funny. And he'd come in and say, oh, you've got that one backwards. I said, it's a rock. How can you tell it's backwards? Well, to him, it was backwards. I'm like, okay, turn it around. So we did, getting the lighting right and making it look good. And he loves that room. That makes him so happy. So that's the library that has no books.
The library. Oh, that's a riot. That is a riot. Oh, man.
But he also, behind his desk in his office in an adjoining room, has a fabulous collection of arrowheads that he would collect with his grandfather and his father, and then when he was a little boy. So can't get any better than that. And that's right behind his desk. And he's a tough guy, but he's a softie when it comes to that. I mean, I could just tell that made him so happy. And we designed a special wall of paneling to accommodate all those arrowheads, which, I love that kind of stuff. To me, that just makes a house interesting and a home. Yeah. I wish people would pay more attention to things that they've inherited and that they love or could love. Sometimes they just don't know anything about it. And you have to, design is an education process. And I don't know everything about everything, but I know a little bit, or the internet, you can find out something very easily.
Someone can tell you. Someone out there.
So I would be fascinated by, your love of archaeology and what do you have back in the closet? You probably got all these great bones.
Oh, all sorts of random, yeah. Again, I tend to err a little more sentimental with all of this, but I think to display collections like the arrowheads,
right,
that have they're not just interesting because they are historic,
right,
but there's also a personal history. Those are
Yeah.
those are displayed memories, and that is just like, that is so special. That is so
Beautifully
special.
said.
Very
Displayed
special.
memories. I love that. Can I steal that for my next book?
Sure. Stick me in the acknowledgments. We'll be good. But yeah, I
Little
mean,
asterisk there. I'll give you a credit.
I love it. I love it. I can't encourage people enough to get their hands on the book, because it really
Oh,
was
thank you.
so much more than, I mean, of course, like I said, there are beautiful pictures, but just to go through it, and really, it is so inspiring and helpful. We get used to things in certain places in our home. We forget that those are interchangeable. We can move
Well,
them.
we don't. Sometimes I tell clients it's just a fresh eye coming in. I'm not a genius. You've seen it so much, you don't see it anymore. I come
Right.
in and I see it for the first time, and it's a revelation to me. And I do appreciate what you said about my book being more than a coffee table book.
It really is.
I feel that way, and I think it has a lot of valuable information. But I'm amazed at the people that never read. They'll buy a beautiful book, they'll look at the pictures, but they don't read it. And so I will say, I actually wrote my book, so I didn't hire a ghostwriter like most people do.
No, I
I
love
actually,
it. It's in your
I
voice.
wrote it. It's
Yeah.
in my voice,
Yes.
and be it right or wrong, it is what it is. And I thought, if I can't do it, fine, I can always hire somebody. But I want to do it, and if it, so it's a part of me. And it's kind of the way I think, and that's what I wanted the book to be about. So that meant so much to me.
It's so wonderfully done, and I truly mean that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
and I had great photographers. I was very lucky. Some of the best photographers in the country did the photos, and so I was very lucky. And everyone was, and the clients, because many of them could have said no. A lot of people don't want their home photographed, so I've been very lucky. Thank you.
So well. Everyone did a wonderful job on it. You are very involved with an organization called Dwell with Dignity. And I just want to throw it out there to folks who are listening that if you are interested in grabbing a book, John has a charity book signing in Dallas on April 4th from 4 to 6. I'll share more information to our show notes, and then also put it out on our Instagram page. But do you want to talk a little bit about your involvement with the organization?
Oh, I would be thrilled. Thanks, Allie, for bringing that up. It's an organization near and dear to my heart. Our design community has really embraced it. A wonderful design friend started it, and it's just it basically, the premise is everyone is deserving of good design, no matter what your socioeconomic status is. And so to do a first-time apartment for someone that has just moved from a homeless shelter to the first apartment, and have it be wonderfully decorated, it makes a difference in people's lives. And the way this particular charity works, so many of the fabulous showrooms in the Dallas Design Center will donate things, and designers donate their talents and their abilities and all of this stuff. In a world of dealing with the affluent, it all comes back to making everybody feel the benefits of good design, and knowing that the room that you wake up in the morning, if it's put together and feels good and looks good, it can make a difference in how you feel during the day. And this is a wonderful charity, so they do a tremendous job furnishing these new homes for people. I don't know how many they do a year, but a lot. And so they have they've just bought a building, and they're having several interior designers that have books will be doing a book signing. I think my friend Jan Showers is doing, she's donating some books, and there's many other people that are participating in this event. Yes, I would be thrilled if anybody wants to come and check out and learn more about Dwell with Dignity.
We will also share your information so people can connect with you on your website and social media and all of that good stuff. But was there anything else you wanted to add before we log off here?
Oh, well, if they want to check out my Homeworthy episode, it was really fun. I enjoyed doing that. A house full of collections. And so I kind of focus on the collections from stone fruit to Parian ware to Mudmen all over the place. And so that was a fun if you watch Homeworthy, it's on the YouTube channel. So check it out.
Well, thank you so much. And we will, like I said, share your information. And yeah, I'm just excited to see what's next. So thank you.
Thank you.